You're watching Industry Insider with Dassault Systems. This series looks into business continuity during a time of rapid changes and disruptions, where you will hear from industry experts about how they manage to navigate the crosswinds during these turbulent times. It is also the perfect platform for you to ask your questions while the show is ongoing. All you have to do is leave your questions at the comment section below. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Timothy Go. We will focus on startups and SMEs today. They are also navigating the unprecedented times, but with much more agility. It is, of course, easier for SMEs and startups to switch strategies faster to respond to current economic conditions, allowing them to innovate and, in many cases, discover even better ways to get things done. In today's episode, we will hear from a couple of SMEs and startups about the journey so far and get some tips on how they got to where they are despite the uncertainties. And later, we will be joined by Integra Systems, NDR Medical Technology, FIBO, and Savic Motorcycles on how they are adapting to these times. But first, how should SMEs and startups navigate these challenging times? I spoke with Suchit Jain earlier today. Suchit is Dassault Systèmes SOLIDWORKS Vice President of Strategy and Business Development. And I started by asking him how the COVID-19 pandemic affected SMEs and startups.
Well, COVID-19 pandemic and the following lockdowns have really pushed most businesses to a grinding halt across the world. Now, SMEs and startups are no less impacted. SMEs represent, for example, in US, around 48% of the economy. And these small businesses are financially fragile. And more than ever now, they're uncertain about their future. Now, while some of these industries, such as e-commerce, SaaS, cloud, health tech, even collaboration software, have largely been untouched and even accelerated in some cases, but others, such as restaurants, live events, on-premise IT, perhaps travel, transportation, we are seeing all over, they are facing declines, and they really need to prepare well to deal with the long-term economic impact of this virus. Now, in my view, overall, one net positive effect of COVID has been to accelerate the disruptive role of technology across these industries.
Okay, Suchit, so as you were mentioning, 40-something% of the economy is really small and medium enterprise, the backbone of any economy, in fact. How have these SMEs and startups come together to make a difference?
Well, I mean, one thing we realized when this crisis hit us, that these problems actually existed before. And the problems I'm talking about are things like the manufacturing. And, we were really unprepared. At least I can speak for US, and what we saw, we were unprepared for this type of an unprecedented event. And it left hospitals with massive shortage of ventilators, protective masks, gloves, etc. And we saw a bunch of large companies, GM, GE, Ford, 3M, working on solving problems, for ventilators and respirators. But then also the small and medium-sized businesses, startups contributed in their own scale. A lot of these SMEs and startup companies stepped up to address these shortages. In our world, we saw companies retooling their factories to manufacture medical supplies, or creating what I call as pop-up factories to 3D print PPEs, such as face masks, for in their local communities for first responders, nurses, hospitals, etc. And then another fascinating thing I saw, I'm an engineer myself, and a lot of the engineering teams in these smaller segments start to work on solutions to solve problems. And even something which is sort of not common, they start to share IP, and the know-how across industries. So that's something I was very remarkable in my view.
Suchit, so you're an engineer. I'm an SME myself, and I find that because we are a startup, it's easier for us to change strategies faster. But in your opinion, how can other SMEs survive this new normal, and what are some of the strategies or even investments that SMEs can adopt to increase their competitive advantages and continue to continue the business continuity in this new normal we're all living in?
Yeah, that's the right word, Tim. The new normal, and I really think that there are a few things which comes to my mind. Well, one of them is that they have to really put their resources behind this changing change of the business in a post-COVID future. So they have to really think about what that looks like and put a lot of their resources, because it's not something which is sort of going away. It's as you said, it's a new normal. They should take initiatives for efficiency, and more than ever before. Focus, for example, on remote employee productivity. A lot of companies across the world, in fact, some of the smaller ones are saying, "Hey, maybe we realized that working remotely is better and more efficient, and maybe we don't, even if the COVID sort of subsides, that we maybe will just work remotely." I would also say, these businesses, especially the small and medium size, even startups, have to evolve their businesses. An example which comes to my mind is Uber. Uber, which is a larger company, they invested significantly in home delivery. Look at live event spaces. They're investing more in live streaming or augmented reality type of experiences. So really, I would say, companies should evolve towards this post-COVID world and use technology and innovation, digital experiences. These will become key to their successes. And, I sort of call it the digitalization of the small business, if you will.
All right. In that aspect, Suchit, some companies are probably waiting to go back to the old ways, and as you are suggesting, starting to think about the new normal post-COVID. What would your advice be to companies who are kind of wait and see? We might still get back to the old ways. Is that such a good thing to think about?
I don't think so. I always say, well, not I always say, but this is something everybody knows, and kind of follow it, is that never leave a crisis alone, and use that as an opportunity to do better. So I think we all know that this is the new normal, and I think the companies and the startups, especially the smaller ones, have to really understand that this is the time. I mean, they can optimize, because if they do all of that, then out of this crisis, they will come out much stronger and better. So definitely they should.
New opportunity to try new things and do something better. Is there a difference, do you think, here in Asia and the rest of the world in terms of how SMEs and startups are adapting?
Um, you know, in for example, in Southeast Asia, and this is my understanding, that as compared to US, 90%. So remember, I said nearly 48% in US, the small businesses, but in Southeast Asia, for example, it's more closer to 90% of the region's economy consists of these small businesses. So it's even a more so there's that difference, which makes more um, uh, the small and startups to take more note of this. We know that there are a lot of small street stores. I grew up in India, and I remember how things were. A lot of the economies run in these mom and pop shops. And one of the things is that they've struggled to go online, and that's a difference compared to US. So I think the lack of digital literacy can be a hurdle in Asia, amongst especially among the small businesses. Uh, and we have started to see a kind of a solution popping up, and some of the larger companies, technology companies such as Facebook, is launching this. They launched this shop service, allowing business to set up an integrated online store, accessible via the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, etc. So that the digital literacy is one important part, which is a difference, I believe. Second thing, which I've noticed personally, is especially when we do a lot of work with startups in Asia, and the access to capital for startups in Asia is harder compared to US. The VC systems, etc., is there. So, but that has had a positive effect in my view. This has driven startups in Asia to be even more efficient, I believe, than the startups in US. So a couple of differences there: the digital literacy and solution, and perhaps in the access to capital, making the startups more efficient.
Okay, well, here in Singapore, I can speak from experience, Suchit, that the government has been encouraging us to go digital. And with the COVID-19, it seems like they're taking this opportunity to, there's something called a digital resiliency bonus that it's a subsidy that we can receive as small businesses if we do a list of things. And most of it is really getting into and signing up to digitization of the way we run our businesses. Do you think the government has a bigger role to play in making small businesses go on the same path as to digitization?
In times like these, like what's happening with COVID, which is not sort of, it's an unforeseen event, I think government definitely has a role, and it's a role of a catalyst. So it's a role of leadership, and all the things you just mentioned are the right things to do, because as I said, digitalization is a key. Even in a non-COVID environment, we believe, and digitalization is an important part for success of any company, and it's kind of become even that much more important in this thing. So yes, government has a role, and they have to be the leaders and the catalysts in that movement.
That's Suchit Jain, Vice President of Strategy and Business at Dassault Systèmes SOLIDWORKS. Joined me earlier from the United States. Well, still ahead, we will hear from an Australian manufacturer that invested heavily on Industry 4.0 with the help of SOLIDWORKS. What exactly did they manage to achieve? Find out after the break. You're watching Industry Insider with Dassault Systems, and this week we are focusing on how SMEs and startups can navigate the bumpy ride. Next, we will learn how Integra Systems of Australia managed to turn adversity into an opportunity. Integra Systems plays an important role in the Australian manufacturing industry as a contract designer and manufacturer, helping many businesses to innovate. Integra invested in an Industry 4.0 inspired solution and relied on Dassault Systèmes SOLIDWORKS to make things work. Right now, Paul Hughes, the founder and managing director of Integra Systems, is joining us from Melbourne, Australia. Well, first, can you tell me what the state of Australian manufacturing sector is at the moment?
Yes, I feel the Australian manufacturing industry has gone through some massive changes. One has been instigated by the closure of the automotive. During that period, manufacturers really adopted a lot of high-tech machine tools to increase the quality of their product and make product in a more automated way. Now with COVID coming along, I see a far more greater need for accelerated change. And with supply chains out of China largely broken down, companies are requiring Australian manufacturers to be able to manufacture in small to medium batches and also rapidly develop product and increment new product to adapt to market trends in a really agile way. I think this is really only the tip of the iceberg of what is about to come for those companies who have not only embraced high-tech machinery, but also embraced the CAD tools required to design and to drive product through their manufacturing.
Paul, what sort of challenges did Integra face, and what did you do to turn the current crisis into an opportunity?
Yes, as a design-based manufacturer, we've always, one of the greatest challenges has been how to recoup design over relatively small production runs. We've always had the opinion that if we spend more on design at the front end, things will flow through the factory in the simplest possible way and will enable us to incrementally improve our products for customers along the way. We've always sat in the small to medium batch size production, and we've never been exposed to the high volume of the automotive industry, which I suppose in some ways has really had us swimming against the stream. But I really feel now that those companies that through the COVID crisis are bringing their supply chains back to Australia, they're really seeing the importance in design and spending more money up front for greater savings down the track. And in our manufacturing, I suppose a real key to what we do is getting from design through to a finished product in the shortest period, in the shortest possible way, with the least amount of documentation. So we're really embracing Industry 4 techniques, and we've developed a new in-house kiosk system where our designs go straight from effectively the CAD, the drawing board, to production. We've no longer got paper drawings. We've got touchscreen terminals with 3D. The operators have access to all the 3D images, which feeds into our ERP system, our real-time machine monitoring, and our quality system to give a complete, agile, seamless approach to design and manufacture.
So at which point did you realize, Paul, that there is an opportunity that can be seized?
Yes, I think when the automotive closed down in Australia, there was more opportunities for companies who had embraced design through to manufacture in the real small to medium manufacturing space. But I think the greatest opportunity came where people realised how much they were exposed to offshore or greater control from companies offshore such as China, not only for their manufacturing, but also in terms of their IP. So we really realised as a company that we could be seen or could really become a safe house for Australian companies, if you like, where they can get their design and manufacturing done under the one roof, knowing that their IP is protected, and not only protected, it can be incrementally improved or changed at a far greater rate than in the past, where they had a lot of companies had the model where their design was done in a high-cost country such as Australia, the manufacturing was done in the lowest cost country possible. Well, that model, I believe, is largely a failed model. And I think by embracing the latest technologies in manufacturing and also design, we're really there's huge opportunities there for Australian companies to offer that as a complete service to companies.
Are you anticipating any new business models? And Paul, how is Integra responding now to the new normal?
Yes, our business model really won't be changing. Our business model has always been design and make, and I think that's been really more sought after with our customers. And I really feel that the current climate is really giving us more choice in terms of the customers who we got more choice over who we work with, and we're not required to take on a job from any customer who wants to give us an order. We can, because we've always been design focused, we see the upfront design as really a lot of fun, and we want to work with customers who are really fun to work with and really value that design through to manufacture. We've never been short-term people or involved in, really looking for the transactional sort of relationships. So we understand that there will be companies who see the current climate as a bit of a blip in the supply chain and are looking for Australian manufacturers possibly to fill the gap before they return to an offshore supply chain. But we do think there's going to be a big change in people's attitudes and companies really valuing that in-house design and manufacture. With Integra, we've really focused over a long period of time to foster our culture, and a culture that's true to our values. With our team, we've got a really good IT platform that enables people to work remotely using all the latest Industry 4.0 technology. We can monitor machine productivity from home. We can log into our ERP system, which is cloud-based. We can get into all our complete drawing portfolio. So we've got all the tools to work remotely, but we really feel that the best results are achieved by everyone coming together in the one place, and where our culture and our values can show through, and we can provide our customers with the absolute best results.
Great words of advice there, Paul. That's Paul Hughes, the founder and managing director of Integra Systems of Australia. One of the trends emerging for a few years now is medical technology, and the urgency of it today is even more relevant. We're talking about surgical robotics, clinical AI, and a unique system known as automated needle targeting. Now remember that. Let's find out more from Alan Goh, Chief Executive Officer at NDR Medical Technology. Alan, how would you define what medical technology is in today's context, and how has medtech transformed the face of healthcare?
Hi, Tim. Thank you for having me in this interview. Basically, technology spans across a wide spectrum of healthcare. It can be anything from biotech to pharma to even clinical to surgical tools. So when we talk specifically about a medical device or medical technology in these instances, we are actually talking about any form of hardware, devices or software solutions that's implemented to improve medical care. Also, some of the examples could be heart pacemaker, kidney dialysis gadgets, or even heart monitoring devices to surgical tools. And in this instance, we are actually talking about NDR Medical's surgical robotic system, which is ANT, as you mentioned. We actually uses robotic system and AI for the purpose of targeting lesions at an earlier stage. In a sense, we can eradicate cancer much earlier compared to conventional way, and this is made possible by the use of technology.
Okay, earlier we were talking about clinical AI, artificial intelligence. Where does artificial intelligence come into play then? And how is it changing the way surgeries are done?
AI basically gives us more power, in a sense. With the computational power these days, with the advancement in the GPU, it helps the processing of this algorithm or data in a much speedier manner. So it is usually life changing. The application of AI in surgery actually range from pre-operative planning, intra-operative guidance, to integrating or integration of robotic system. So in a sense, what usually takes probably 15 minutes and 20 years of experience for surgeons' naked eye to do any diagnosis, these days with the AI enabled system, they can actually literally do the diagnosis in the time frame of a few minutes, and using the surgical robots as a guidance to access lesion in our context.
Now, let me ask you this. What would be your advice for startups navigating these challenging times?
If you are speaking about COVID, this is definitely a challenging time for everyone, especially for the in the startup world, and especially so in the deep tech space, whereby we burn cash to develop our technology, and the complexity of regulatory hurdles that we have to navigate across. So my advice to other startups in or not in the deep tech space would be to keep yourself lean. It's gonna be at least 1 or 2 years before we come out of this COVID seasons. Have a tight budget, plan your resource carefully. Of course, work closely with your internal and external stakeholders, and trust me, in any crisis there will be opportunity. So for example, I always like to state this example, because we are conducting our clinical trials and we couldn't be flying over to Japan to do the trials together with the clinicians, because we couldn't travel and they don't want us to be there. So what we end up being is that the clinicians mentioned that, Alan, you don't have to come over. We will do the trials on your behalf. So, and that has panned out very well for us. For the last 15 trials, it has been conducted fully and purely with the surgeons, without the company involvement on the site.
Very well said, Alan. Thank you very much again, Alan. Alan Go is the CEO of NDR Medical Technologies. Coming up next, how far are we in robotics technology? And is this the right time to witness how robots can transform how we do things in the future? That's coming up next here on Industry Insider with Dassault Systems. Welcome back to Industry Insider with Dassault Systems. Earlier, we learned how robots and artificial technology can make medical procedures more precise. Well, have you ever wondered how much more robots can be a part of our lives? The Institute of Field Robotics, or FIBO, at King Mongkut's University of Technology in Thonburi, Thailand, has been using Dassault Systèmes SOLIDWORKS to design and build robots that help in the medical field. Let's find out more now about how FIBO and robots are easing the workload of our overwhelmed medical heroes. Wutichai Visangkuna, the Acting Deputy Director of Industrial Services at FIBO, with all the details.
ใน FIBO เราก็ประกอบด้วย3ฝ่ายหลักๆหนึ่งก็คือฝ่ายการศึกษาในหลักสูตรของวิทยาการหุ่นยนต์และระบบอัตโนมัติส่วนอีกฝ่ายที่2ก็คือฝ่ายของวิจัยส่วนฝ่ายที่3คือฝ่ายของผมก็คือฝ่ายอุตสาหกรรมทำหน้าที่ในการให้บริการวิชาการเทคนิคหรือเอนจิเนียร์ต่างๆให้กับภาคอุตสาหกรรมเราเห็นข่าวโควิดมาตั้งแต่ประมาณมกราคมกุมภาพันธ์จากต่างประเทศก็เริ่มคิดว่าเราจะต้องเอาเทคโนโลยีต่างๆที่เราเชี่ยวชาญเนี่ยมาช่วยประเทศบ้างผู้ก่อตั้งFIBOนะครับเขาเล็งเห็นว่าถ้าเกิดคุณหมอในประเทศไทยซึ่งมีอยู่น้อยแล้วเนี่ยมีการติดเชื้อแล้วไม่สามารถรักษาผู้ป่วยได้จะส่งผลให้ประเทศไทยอาจจะมีผู้ป่วยที่ติดเชื้อจำนวนสูงขึ้นเราก็เลยดีไซน์หุ่นยนต์ให้ทำหน้าที่แทนคุณหมอทำหน้าที่แทนบุคลากรทางการแพทย์ทุกคนคือให้คุณหมอไม่เสี่ยงต่อการติดเชื้อมาโก้ก็ในภาพรวมคือก็ช่วยบุคลากรทางการแพทย์ในการปฏิบัติงานแบ่งเป็นทั้งหมด 4 รูปแบบโซฟาจะทำแทนคุณหมอทุกอย่างหาผู้ป่วยอันนี้สามารถนำทางไปเองไม่ต้องบังคับวิดีโอคอลกับผู้ป่วยได้กล้องที่อยู่บนโซฟาสามารถที่จะทำการซูมได้20 เท่าทำให้เราสามารถตรวจอาการเช่นแบบคออักเสบไหมส่วนตัวที่2จะเป็นหุ่นยนต์ส่งอาหารและยาเราทำอยู่2รุ่นครับรุ่นแรกชื่อว่า cover ก็จะมีคุณสมบัติส่งอาหารและยาได้20 เตียงนอกจาก cover แล้วจะมีอีกตัวหนึ่งที่ทำคู่กันไปก็คือชื่อว่ามัมอันนี้ก็จะเป็นเวอร์ชันมัม3แล้วมัม3ก็จะมีพัฒนาต่อเข้ามาอีกนิดนึงก็คือมันจะเป็นการเหมือนกับจิบอาหารออกมาที่ช่องให้เลยแล้วก็ตัวที่3เนี่ยจะเป็นหุ่นยนต์ที่เอาไว้ฆ่าเชื้อโดยใช้ UVC เขาออกจากห้องไปเนี่ยจะใช้หุ่นยนต์ตัวนี้เข้าไปฆ่าเชื้อโควิดได้นะครับตัวที่4จะเป็นหุ่นยนต์เปรียบเสมือนนางพยาบาลชื่อว่าหุ่นยนต์ Savic Motorcycles มาทำการพัฒนาซอฟต์แวร์ข้างในให้ลิงก์กับแพลตฟอร์มกลางของเราส่งอาหารและยาได้ประมาณ2 เตียงก็วิดีโอคอลได้ทำให้คุณหมอเนี่ยไม่ต้องไปใส่ชุดป้องกันก็คือควบคุมจากตัวสเตชันของเราได้เลยแล้วก็เข้าไปในจุดนั้นคุณหมอก็จะมีการทำงานที่สะดวกสบายมากขึ้นโดยที่ยังคงรักษามาตรฐานของการรักษาอยู่ผู้ป่วยรู้สึกดีขึ้นจากหุ่นโซฟาของเราด้วยความที่มันมีรูปลักษณ์ที่น่ารักกลุ่มที่เป็นสตาร์ทอัพที่ยังอยากจะพัฒนาเทคโนโลยีเกี่ยวกับการแพทย์นะครับคือพอมันมีความต้องการสูงเนี่ยโดยเทคโนโลยีที่เราสร้างนวัตกรรมขึ้นมาเนี่ยพอเอกชนหรือว่าโรงพยาบาลเห็นเขาก็เลยมีความต้องการสูงมันก็เลยเป็นโอกาสให้กับสตาร์ทอัพต่างๆที่สามารถที่จะเข้ามาเอาโอกาสตรงนี้หรือดีมานด์ตรงนี้มาตอบสนองให้กับผู้ที่ต้องการได้ในวิกฤตหนึ่งมันจะมีโอกาสอยู่กลุ่มหนึ่งเสมอซึ่งที่เราต้องการก็คือในโรงพยาบาลจะมีโจทย์ที่เยอะมากซึ่งสตาร์ทอัพอาจจะต้องเข้าไปหาโจทย์จากในจุดนั้นก็อาจจะได้อะไรค่อนข้างเยอะนะครับ
That's Vutichai Visankunat there, the Acting Deputy Director for Industrial Services at FIBO, on how robots can be a big help to humans in times of a crisis. Now, many of you might think, with lockdowns imposed over 90% of the world at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, sales of motorbikes would have been hit hard. Well, Australia also went through its own lockdown period, but a motorcycle manufacturing company there managed to stay on their path forward. Savic Motorcycles, a high-performance electric motorbike designed and built in Australia for passionate motorcyclists who care about the future. Let's hear now from Savic's founder himself, Dennis Savic, about the company's strategy during the pandemic disruption.
Savic Motorcycles is Australia's electric motorcycle company, and we focus on manufacturing beautiful motorcycles with the goal of growing it to be a global organisation one day. The team and I started working on electric motorcycles back in 2015, basically straight out of university. And yeah, basically every year since then, we've built a prototype every year. We've gone through a couple of capital raises, taking on some investment. And this year we are building our production prototype. And we've collected about half of the 50 production orders available for next year, which is amazing. It's a dream come true. And so, yeah, hopefully we kick off our first production run around mid to late next year. Because of the stage that the business is at, and we are starting with a production volume of 50 units, and we hope to scale that to 200 to 500 in the coming couple of years. Supply chain is a massive hurdle. The reason is suppliers don't particularly want to work with you all that often if you don't have a large order volume, which makes sense from an economical perspective. And so starting out super early, that transition from making everything ourselves in a workshop and welding bits of metal together to try and build a bike, to outsourcing everything to a supplier, and not just a supplier. We've got maybe 12 to 20 different suppliers for which we get all our parts made and then assemble everything locally. It's a huge challenge, and yeah, so it's been interesting managing those collaborative challenges. I mean, there's multiple aspects to it. There's managing those collaborative challenges as you grow as a business, and then there's also external factors, things like COVID, and things like becoming an international business, which we are now. So the way that we have overcome that is with multiple cloud-based systems, and that has really made things a lot easier for us. And perhaps we're lucky that where we are in the world, the internet is pretty good, and so we find that as the internet has improved, and internet speeds have improved, from a business perspective and from an operational efficiency perspective, cloud-based was just a no-brainer. Really critical to any startup, and that's, in my mind, passion, pursuit, and persistence. Don't be afraid to just try it and fail. And if you fail, you've just found another way to not do it. And persistence, which is basically just don't give up until you don't have a choice. Technology really is your friend, and you have no other option. And the better your technology, the better you'll operate as a business. And I've had that philosophy for some time now, and we run everything on cloud-based platforms and have done for a couple of years. That has helped us work remotely as and when we need to. And yeah, managing everything and automating as many things as you possibly can effectively is super key for any early stage business to scale and grow.
As we have learned today, companies do need to invest and leverage more on technology now, more than ever before, to be able to adapt and navigate in unprecedented times. Well, that's all for this edition of Industry Insider with Dassault Systems. We hope you've gained some useful insights. On the next episode, we will look closer at the food and beverage industry, specifically the supply chain side of things and how they are building resilience and forecasting demand. That's all on the next Industry Insider with Dassault Systems. See you here on LinkedIn Livestream. I'm Timothy Go. Thanks for watching.